Hi there.
Hi.
We've had a few questions about people with hyperextended joints, people whose joints hyperextend easily. And the question that keeps coming up is it dangerous if your joints hyperextend? Should you just ignore it? Or why does it happen?
Oh. Well, some people, that's just the bodies they're born with. Say their elbow hyperextends or their knee hyperextends. You can also get hyperextension in many other joints, even along the spine. And the hyperextension in itself is fine, but when you come to the mechanics of, say, walking, bearing weight, lifting something with the arms, the physics of a hyperextended joint can really cause damage throughout the body. And so you just have to think, so if I'm just lying here on the floor and I want to hyperextend my elbow or something, that might be a wonderful experience, but it's not, so it's the context.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing an arm balance and I hyperextend the joint, probably that joint will then translate and will damage not only the elbow, but it'll damage the shoulder, which will damage the neck, and who knows?
It goes from there. And with anything to do with joints in yoga, the joints in the body, that what you have to recognize is that the let's say it's the elbow joint that you're talking about, that has an extreme impact on the joints that are on either side of it. So the elbow joint really impacts the shoulder, really impacts the wrist, etc. And one of the things that happens when the joint is hyperextended is that what might be called the flow of prana, or the energy flow, sort of stops. You might, if you have a hyperextended knee and your foot is grounded well and you're bringing a lot of sort of prana up through the body, through the leg, energy up the body, it gets to the knee and then it just sort of dissipates or shoots out the back. And then the whole posture from there on has prana or energy that's disorganized. And so the body starts to get confused. And there are different ways of dealing with having hyperextended joints.
And we like to say microbend, the hyperextended joint. And literally you can do it what people would consider a microscopic bend, in which mechanically the joint is still able to go into flexion. The muscles are all on guard, and so that allows you to articulate, the beyond that, just that joint. So someone with hyperextended knees really has trouble articulating their feet, and therefore they can't really feel the pelvic floor in relation to the feet because of the hyperextended knee. And so it takes a lot of experimenting. And so one should approach, if someone has this tendency, just slow down and approach it with very simple movements, and you'll start to feel, oh, that feels wonderful, or that doesn't feel really wonderful.
And one thing that students have told us who do have hyperextended elbow joints or knee joints is, especially with the arm joints, is that instead of trying to microbend, which if you do have a hyperextending joint and you feel like you are bending it, from the outside to others it may look like nothing is happening, and to you it might feel like an extreme amount of bend is happening. But that students who have hyperextended joints have said that it's almost as if you could reach towards something and then pull back. So it's almost as if you're reaching and then pulling back, rather than focusing on the joint itself that is hyperextending, but focusing on the muscles that help that joint to move more intelligently. So it's really something, if you do have joints that hyperextend, that you work with, like you said, work with it slowly, work with it individually.
Like doing the upward dog pose.
Yeah.
If you visibly bend the elbows, it actually can really help the quality of the movement in the shoulders and the spine.
Yeah.
And it's healthier.
So play with it. See what happens. If you're a teacher with students who have hyperextending joints, don't give them a hard time. Work with them gently and really carefully, because the joints in the body are the things that really help us to move the prana through the body, to move the intelligence. Yeah. Hope that helped. Thanks.